want to look at what are the things that we all need every day of the week? What are the things that we need to move forward? What are the things that we need to be successful, right? And at the end of the day, I also want to take you a little behind the scenes of my business currently, because I think there's so many juicy things that you can learn about what you can apply to yourself. So I want to talk to you about that too. But I want to look at taking action, right? Because ultimately, we find the results of our life, come from the actions, the habits, and it's like tiny little habits and tiny little actions that add up. And what's that meme? I've seen it so many times, like, don't complain about the results you don't get from the things you didn't do, right? And boy, I want to talk to you about the behind the scenes of my business to just show you how much there is to that, and what I'm learning and what I continue to learn, and how fascinating it is. And it puts it in perspective so that you don't beat yourself up. You really understand how much action actually is needed to create a result. It's kind of like watching a rocket launch, and it's watching something come out of a cannon, right? It's like the amount of momentum, the amount of action that just keeps adding up and adding up and adding up in order for then there to be a result. It's actually quite massive, right? And it's all these little things that add up and add up and add up and add up. And so when we're not taking action, we just can't expect to get results, because it's in the showing up, right? We live in this world that it's this energy that gets channeled through the physical reality, right? So I can have this incredible meditative practice, but if I don't then take that resonance and go live, or put it through an email, or talk to my neighbor, then the message doesn't get delivered, right? So it's like most of it is in what is it that's being offered? What is the essence that is being delivered? But then the delivery has to happen, and it has to happen all the time. And when the resonance is powerful and the alignment is there, wow, I mean, it's amazing, right? How people receive it, right? Because if the resonance isn't there and the alignment is really weak, then there could be tons and tons and tons of action, but nothing is really moving because there's no there, right? So it's a combination, but we want to look at that action. And so, Colleen, I just saw you pop in. I told them that you were getting messages. So I wanted to take them through looking at what allows us to take action and what keeps us from taking action. Mm-hmm. And I've done a little research on this, and there's usually 3 things that keep us from taking action. Does anyone have any idea what those 3 things might be that stop humans? This is just human behavior. The first 2 are kind of, yes, Jen. Yeah. Amy, yes. So if you do a little bit of research on this, yes, Michelle, if you do a little research on this, there's really 3 things. And the first 2 are very similar. They're kind of nuances of each other. It would be limiting self-thought, right? Like things that you believe about yourself. And then other fears. The second one would be other fears, right? Like fears are us fantasizing, right? They're fantasies that are it's like you live into it. It's like you simulate a reality. It's like when you go on those rides, some roller coasters actually have a track they move on, and some are simulators, right? Where you're sitting in the same place, but you're watching a movie and it feels very real. That's what fear in general is like. You simulate a reality for yourself, and then your body doesn't know the difference. So you get all those same chemicals pumping, and it's terrifying, right? So the first one has to do with our own self-belief, and the second one is about the world in general, how it actually is. And then the third thing would be an obstacle or a roadblock. Okay, so I'm just curious, because I think this is just powerful and helpful. If you were to guess, because we do have an element of ourself that knows our stuff. So if you were to guess, let's go through all 3. And they're all important, right? Because the obstacle and the roadblock is also important, right? You could say, I've overcome my self-doubt. I don't have this simulator ride of fear about the world, but my obstacle is that I want to build a website and I don't have the technical skill. And that's an obstacle, right? That's real. So we want to look at all of these things. So let's just look at this for a second. So if I were to ask you to guess, what is the pesky little annoying limiting self-belief that comes up for you? What is it? if you're going to be honest and tell us what is the one for you that gets in your way or that you're aware of that you might be unconscious of sometimes, but once in a while you notice it. Okay, Rochelle, that's very honest. Like, who am I, right? Like, am I a fraud? Am I expert enough? Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Kristen said, right, same kind of thing, like self-trusting yourself, like being good enough. Lucy said, fear of what other people think, although I've got a lot better. You definitely have. Have I made it? Am I good enough? This is a very similar thing, right? Amy said, who do I think I am to go all in? Yeah. And Amy, we had a great, your Voxer day the other day was phenomenal. I said to Colleen, I know you're busy today. You have to go back and listen to the shower moment because she's messaging me from the shower and she got it. She just got it. It's like Shawshank Redemption. Like, it was amazing. But yes, I know you have struggled with that. Who do I think I am? This is coming up a lot. Jen, similar, right? I'm not good enough. Michelle, it's a derivative of that. What do other people think of me? Michelle's brilliant. She went to Northwestern. I say that because that's my husband's white whale. He got into Berkeley. He couldn't get into Northwestern anytime. He applied for law school, undergrad, business school, couldn't get it. He's like, they will not take me. They just won't make it happen. It was his dream. It was his dream to go there. It's such a hard school. And it's just like, what will other people think? It's like, it's baffling to him that you would think that, you got into that school. It's just funny, right? It's funny what we all make meaning of things. And Uzma, you said the info won't actually help anyone. People won't show up and listen to me or accept me. Okay, so that's kind of moving into the second realm of like the general fear, like, maybe this won't help anybody, and people won't show up. Ooh, and then there's the part about yourself that nobody would accept you. And Ariel, you said, I'm not able to show value. Oh, like I can't prove, right? That it's not just, I can't communicate somehow the value of this. And Amy said, self-doubt, now fear, obstacles. Oh, I see. Okay, good. So you're moving out of that. You're seeing like that self-doubt is kind of fading away. Now it's like this globalized like vision of the world and then the obstacles. Okay. So many things, ideas and things I want to do at the same time. I don't know enough. I'm not worth listening to. Great. So thank you guys for being so honest that I'll hurt people accidentally with my words or actions. Wow. I mean, I get that. That's a lot of over responsibility there. Like you're responsible for what everybody, what everyone feels. And Caroline said, what other people think of me, what I do or say, but I feel like I've come a long way. Yeah, I think that you have. I really think that you have. Okay, so now let's talk about the second one, right? Let's talk about the second one. The second one is the simulator ride that we're on, right? When the track is not actually moving, there is no actual roller coaster, but there's those rides. I hate those rides, by the way. And you do too, Colleen? I think they're just—
throw up on them.
I throw up on them. Yeah, it must be because our brain is like, fuck you, this is not even happening. Like I refuse to get, it's just like discordant. It's just gross. And my husband, to bring him up again, I don't know, he just is obsessed with roller coasters, which is the funniest thing because he's very, I would say, outwardly more fearful and not like gregarious, but he loves roller coasters, I think because he trusts the science. So he's like, that's the one time I can let it out because I'm in control. So he's obsessed with roller coasters. He always wants to go to theme parks and go on roller coasters, but he hates the simulator rides. He thinks they're awful. He'd go on the loop, he'll go on all that, but he will not sit in the any of those things. So what is the simulation? If we're looking now at the reality that we're playing for ourselves, this effing movie of like, there's a limit here. Nobody's going to buy. Nobody wants this. No one can afford this. No one's going to buy it from me. There's a recession. There's nobody even online. Everyone online is a jerk. Nobody's safe. Whatever that simulator is, it is incredible because it is bullshit and it feels so real because those rides have a convincing element to them. That's why they work. People literally are sitting in a chair that is sometimes not even tipping. It's not even moving at all. And they feel like they have just like, traversed the earth. So what is that reality? If you're going to be honest about it and be conscious of where you go unconscious sometimes, what does it sometimes look like? What is the prison of that reality? What is the brick by brick limit that you have put yourself in sometimes? Like, what's one of those things? Is there are no buyers? Is it people cannot afford this? Is it I would have to be drowning in responsibility? What is it? Like, what is part of like, is it like, there's just no way it will work? Why even bother? In order for me to create a business, I would have to I don't know, overnight generate millions and millions of people coming in? Like, what's the reality that makes it feel impossible? What's the simulator that makes you feel like this is just not doable? So Amy says, I don't know how to get clients. It's all up to chance. People do not find my offers valuable, Kate said. Rochelle said, why would someone pay money for my pottery when they can buy it from Amazon for like $8? Yeah, that's a convincing argument. Hard to scale because I don't have a plan that sticks and works consistently. People who pay what I'm asking are paying other people and not me. I worry that no one will want to have me as their coach, and that I worry about money, which lowers my vibe, and worry that I won't get more clients. Yeah, I have to get 1,000% to everything I do. I have to give 1,000%. Yeah, that is a lot. That is a lot of stuff right there. So if everybody's time, I just wanted to make sure everybody was done sharing. Okay, we're going to go through this one more time and look at the sort of what could be something more helpful. But before we do that, I also want to talk about the third one. Like, what's the effing obstacle, right? Because like I said, like you could say, I've overcome self-belief. I see a world of possibility. But I'm trying to build a table and I can't build this table. Like I don't have the right wood, or something's missing, and Home Depot is sold out, right? So what's the obstacle? So write down for me, if you're being honest, it's so nice to be safe enough to be honest. It's like, if you're being honest, what do you think the obstacle is? Is the obstacle, I do not have the right system? Is the obstacle, I need $100,000 for Facebook ads in order to create a business? Is the obstacle, I don't know. What's the obstacle? I don't have the audience. People want everything for free and they don't need me. I don't have a system at all. I just wing it all the time. Okay. So don't have a system. Tech support. Yeah. And Claire, by the way, I said at the beginning of this call, we're going to be shouting some people out. You just hold on. You're going to be shouted out because you've done such a phenomenal job. Lucy said, I'm not sure how to physically get more clients. Like what? Yeah. Like, what am I supposed to do to get more clients? I need to be more tech savvy and don't have a good enough system. I'm behind. Others already ahead of me, staying in the fun of it, not the to-do. IT support. Yeah, I hear you. IT support is a beast. And I understand how that can feel really frustrating. Okay. I'm just seeing if anyone else is going to share. Finding good team members. Oh, ain't that the truth? My God. It's so true. Colleen and I are having so much fun and misery. Because you realize that, and we love our team. We're just realizing that what gets you from here to here won't get you from here to there. And we need to now actually grow our team. We need to add people to our team. And it's like, doing that well, right? Knowing the right role, knowing who to assign what to, right? Like there's so much that happens there. It's almost like making your first $1 million, as hard as that can seem. It's almost like the leadership elements that come into play can be harder than that. It's fascinating. Yes, we all need a Colleen. That is for sure. That would make everybody's life so amazing. But I will tell you, I met Colleen 1.5 years ago, and my business was already a multi-million-dollar business. Time, strategy, prioritization. Yes, everyone needs a Colleen. Well, that's just true. Colleen is incredible. I can't needle to exact obstacle. Feels like it's just my beliefs. I guess just getting clients and allowing them in. Yeah, and Jen, you've gotten a big education. Jen's been on our launch team this week, and I think she sees a lot, right, Jen? I mean, you probably see so much understanding now, like my process, what really goes into things, and like the nitty gritty of sales. We've been having like really beautiful conversations about holding space for people and only holding for their highest and best, like not being unavailable for people's bullshit. Because that is just, Colleen's like, why even continue the conversation? How is it helping them? to let somebody just blah, like it's just not helpful, right? We want to ask good questions that shift them into that part of them that becomes alive, that becomes awake, that becomes brave, because now we can have a conversation. And so Jen has been fucking amazing, by the way, Jen. We just like threw you into the deep end. She was willing to do it, but like, I think that's our next move, Colleen, is that anyone who comes through our programs, somebody has to work on inside the team, because it's like you just learn a lot. You learn so much more than you realize you're even learning about things. Okay, so let's go back through this for a second, and you remember what you wrote. So if you were going, let's just go 1, 2, 3. If you were going to give yourself an adjustment for what you said was your limiting belief, what's another possible thought that you could substitute? So if you said, I am not enough, I feel like a fraud, I feel like people won't respect me, I feel like I'm not credible enough, or whatever it is, what's another thing that also could be something? And by the way, you don't want to tell yourself, I am Einstein, because your body won't believe that, right? You can't give yourself the complete opposite and say, like, well, I'll just tell people I have a Nobel Prize. It's like, no, that's not needed. But what's a possibility that's also really true? What's something else that you actually believe about yourself at the same time? Because we have so many thoughts, right? And just because we think one thing doesn't mean we don't also think something else. We usually hold multiple things as truth in the same moment. So what else is also true, right? What else is also true that's really true for you? Like, I might think, who am I to do this? But I do have this other part of me that thinks I'm so loving, I'm so helpful, I'm such a good person, I have so much integrity. That comes across. People like me, people trust me, people feel safe, people feel that they can be themselves, people feel happy, right? I'm capable, I'm good with people, I'm resourceful, right? I've gotten through so much in my life. Like, what's also true? I'm capable. I'm going to read your comments now. Some people are blown away by me. I'm actually really creative and talented. I know I can help single women. There's no good reason why I won't get more clients. I have important value to offer, and there are people out there who are ready and want to hear it. I'm worth it. There are clues every day that show up that prove that I can do this. I connect with people that are closer to my level of experience and can lead from that place. I mean, that's a great one, right? Because it's like, wait, maybe actually I'm the perfect person because I'm not super, super, super advanced. Colleen and I'm going to take you behind the scenes of what's going on in the business a little bit, because I think it's going to help you. But one of the things that we talked about this morning is that, I don't know if any of you got to see any part of our 5-day launch, but it was really my favorite launch we've done in terms of my experience in it. Like, sometimes I feel like I'm on, and sometimes I feel like I'm not quite on, and it's not fun, right? Because we really want to be in a flow state, and when you're in flow, when you're just like, Jesus, take the wheel. Like, you just feel like God's there, your channel, you're good. There's no ego. You're not worried. You're just in it, you're in it, right? And time stands still. That's how I felt all week last week. So that was a really beautiful feeling. It feels good, right? It feels good to not be self-conscious and to not be hemming and hawing, but you're just in state. It's good. And Colleen knows when I'm there, and she knows when I'm not. And she was like, you're nailing it. Like, you're just nailing the landing. Like, it's like that perfect figure skater who just like does the twirl and just lands. It's just grace. You don't know where the ice ends and the person begins. That's how I felt last week. This morning, our conversation was, oh my gosh, it's possible that the work we're doing and the content we're offering is actually it's so not your introductory karate class, that the offer that's then attached to it, which is a $3,000 course, it's almost like there's this discordance, right? Because if you're learning from the guy who's way further up in karate, and you're there and you're enjoying it, you might then assume that there's some really meaty, juicy way that you then get into that level of experience. So there might be fewer people who are ready and sophisticated enough to hear it, right? Because not everybody's going in for the Walmart experience at every second. It's not all mass. Some people need this next thing. And so it is interesting that you might realize that what you're offering, right, it doesn't have to be for everyone. right? Not everybody has to get it because it's actually uniquely positioned for a small group of people. And that's also part of why it's amazing. And maybe it's because it's not for the advanced. And that's what I'm also saying. Like, we realized this morning, we would on some level, which I can't do because I can't be something I'm not, but we would do better if we dumbed down what we do. So what I'm saying is, there's actually a lot of room to say, I might not be the advanced karate teacher, but I nail it from A, B to C. There's a whole world of people who actually would prefer, is what I'm saying. I'm saying two things at the same time. I'm saying there is a world of people who would prefer to not have the most sophisticated version of whatever it is that they're buying, because they really kind of need this over here. So my point is, even when I think I'm doing the very best, most enjoyable version of my craft, I actually might have been better suited on one level to give something that was a more introductory, less advanced version. And on the other level, it's like, well, if this is really who I am and it doesn't appeal to all these people, that's also good and okay, because the people who it does appeal to, we can continue to refine what we're doing for those people. So it's really interesting. Now let's go to the third thing that you guys talked about. Oh, actually, let's go to the second thing that you talked about, which was the world, right? The simulation. So in the simulation, what is another possibility that you sometimes, like when you're in flow state, when you're feeling really alive, you're feeling really inspired, you're feeling really at peace, what is the way there you see the world? What is available all of a sudden there? How is it different? What's also part of how you view reality when you change the kaleidoscope and you're in a different view? What else do you see? Limitless opportunities. People are ready. What else? If we're going to change the simulator, what else is also there? Possibility, open space to move, shift, and create. It feels like, of course, this is all possible. Everything I want is possible. There are people who value handmade pottery and are willing to pay for it. That's correct. Yeah, they don't want the cheap Amazon knockoff. They want the real deal. I can revolutionize the state of health and healing in this world, new people to work with. I have faith that my podcast is going to open up major opportunities for me, and I know I'm good at it. Everyone's field is open to healing and love. Yeah, that's true. That's a powerful one. There are never too many people offering this stuff. Yeah, I've got what people need, even if they don't know it yet. Total expansion opportunities and anything, everything is possible. I have so much to offer and people want to work with me. Yeah. Yeah. How about this universe is net positive? And if I take one step, if I take one brave step, it doesn't equal one amount of energy coming back. It's equal to, like, if I took 20 steps, right? That there's like this way in which we get momentum, because there is such a way that this world pulls us towards wholeness. It pulls us towards what's true. It pulls us towards what's elevated. And so when I stand for elevation, when I stand for possibility, so much comes back that's almost disproportionate just by me making one step in that direction, because it's the way that things want to be, right? People get activated. And there's something that we then see that we couldn't see 2 minutes ago. And now we take a second step, and now it's equal to like 4,000 steps, right? And it's true. It's like, there's so much negativity, but it's amazing how positivity changes things. Like, they've done those studies where if 1% of the population in a city meditates, right, it changes the crime rates. It changes the amount of people that enter the emergency room. Why? It's like, because the positive is so much more potent than the negative. So you take those positive steps, and that next thing you know, you don't even see what you saw before. You see so much further, more doors open. That's true. Beautiful beam of light. People are on a wait list to work with me. Great. Okay. And now let's talk about the obstacle that you wrote down. Some of you said there's like a system that's not there. And some people said, I don't know how to do this. I'm just winging it.
Your audience, where are the people?
So what would be not what would be another, but what would you need to overcome that obstacle? Like, what what would be great? Like if this showed up, then what? Like what's the antidote to that? Trust. What is the antidote? An assistant who loves all things tech. Mm-hmm. Patience with technology. 10 more coaching clients before the end of March. That's your aim. That's great. I already have super fans within my audience. Go deeper with my existing audience. Good. Okay. Allowing support and ease and creation of strategy, more feedback, systems in place. So I'm going to give you a really simple system that you guys can start to use based on, I mean, this is so simple. It's so easy, but it's a good strategy. Before I say that, Colleen, is there anything you want to say about all of the things you've been reading so far?
Yeah, I just think it's fascinating how much we feel like we need these antidotes, or these are the things that it has to change for the thing to change. And just kind of a good example, like Cathy saying, like, she didn't have me before she was like multi-million dollars, right? And there's still, it's this level and tricky layer on which we're still playing out the I'll be happy when, catch that people have, like, my business is going to work when. And so I just need to figure out how I can like this, right? And there's a part of us that has to recognize that we have to let go a little bit of that narrative, and because we're hooking very much, like we want to see what's there, we want to see how we're viewing it, but we've got to be able to unhook from that so we can actually show up and then move and start moving from a space without feeling like it's almost out of our control. It's almost like we point to these things as if, but there's nothing I can do about them in the moment, or I don't have the cash to bring that person in, so damn, I'm screwed, or I don't have the cash for Facebook ads, so I don't know how my audience is supposed to get bigger because I keep doing this thing and it's not working. And so we keep swirling in this place where we feel like we see what needs to happen, we think we know what the antidote is, but we don't know how to access the antidote. Is basically what I would say.
Yeah. And I feel like until we're at a place, usually, I mean, I'm just using broad terms, but I can explain this pretty simply. Like once you're making $100,000 or $200,000 on your own, that's when you probably even need someone else, right? Because that first 100 grand, that first 200 grand comes from you having that conversation, right? Everything starts like you sell it, you're the person. And that's how all of my businesses started. I used to cold call and sell my own music. And then when I started coaching songwriters, I was talking to them myself. I didn't have anybody else for 2.5 years. I didn't have anybody else. And when I finally hired Sonnet, I had already done 20 live workshops in my city where I was renting this theater. And I had done my first launch without her. That very first launch, I didn't know what I was doing, but I had 147 people buy it from that first webinar. And then I hired her after that. So there was like literally a couple years of creating those workshops and doing that coaching, and then that first webinar. And then I was like, oh, I think I need somebody else to, at this point, maybe to help me actually not even do the sales part. And I don't think she knew the tech part at all, actually, either. I think it was more like maybe she could help facilitate. She could help me move them through the process. That was actually why I had her. I had her for product delivery. I had her for extra coaching. And then the next thing that came up was, oh, maybe the two of us could figure out a more streamlined thing where we could create an opt-in, but it was very, very bare bones. Like we really didn't have a website or anything that was very lovely looking. We were using at that time Thinkific, and that was like you would create a sales page by just putting and it would say like, upload a photo, and it was like, type your copy. So I would type it, right? And then I would put my copy for the course. And actually many courses, was it Thinkific, Colleen, that I used to use?
Yep.
Yeah. And then I made a lot of courses in there, and that was really cool.
You had Kajabi as well. You had all three. So
yeah, but I didn't have Kajabi yet. My very first kind of year at that, I just used Thinkific. And what was cool about that is, just like I set up my PayPal on my phone myself and my Venmo, Thinkific had a checkout that I just hooked up to my bank account. That was it. It was actually not hard. And I was able to do that on my own. And that was all I had. I had a Thinkific website. I didn't even have a sexy one. It wasn't even like cathyhoward.com/class. It was like thinkific.com/12455. I would just put that link up, or I would send that link to people. It was and that got me to $2 million. No joke. Like, I didn't know what I was doing, but it was enough because I knew what I was saying, and I was just getting better and better, and I wasn't stopping. Right. But what was even more interesting is what happened before that online class, right? Because we were generating all of these people, and they were buying this class from me, and they would just PayPal me for the class, and they would show up at the workshop, and they would literally sign in on a piece of paper that they were there. And then I would have to go and be like, did they pay? Did they pay? And I would follow up, but it wasn't that hard, right? It was like, I guess because I didn't let it be that hard. But we can come up with, and I'm going to show you guys a very simple thing. How many of you, type a 1 in the chat, how many of you use free, easy, simple Google Forms? Do you ever use forms at google.com? Yeah. So that is like the easiest thing out there. It is such an easy tool. It's literally drag and drop. Like, you go to Google Forms and it's like, type a heading, ask a question, right? And then it'll ask you, like, do you want to ask them for their email? Do you want to ask them what they need with the drop down? Do you want one-on-one coaching? Would you like this product? Like, literally people can answer, then you can ask a paragraph question, like, what is your biggest obstacle right now? Or whatever it is. I mean, you guys have seen the Google Forms we make, right? Well, guess what? Then when you send people that link, first of all, it's free. It takes you 1 minute to make it, and then it's free, right? And then when people put their answers in, it sends it to you however you want it. So you can see it all, a summary of all the answers, or you can see each answer individually. But now guess what? There's your email list. There's your database. You literally, it creates for you a database. It creates for you a database. So you can be saying to people on a scale of 1 to 5, how committed are you right now to listing your house? On a scale of 1 to 5, how committed are you right now to getting into coaching? On a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you actually need somebody to help you with your photography business? Guess what? Reach out to all the 5s. So imagine if every single day you had a free Google form that was in your link in bio, or you would send it to people in DMs, or you would talk about it at the end of your podcast. Every day you'd have leads. Every single day you'd be having conversations. Every single day you'd have people telling you what they need, what they want, and you'd be having sales and revenue all the time, right? And we've talked about this. It's not like this is something we haven't talked about, but we do a few simple things, right? We create an offer, we show up, and we become the person who is a resonant stand for that offer. So it's like on your Instagram, if people go to check you out, you're there showing up for that. You're giving away information, you're entertaining, you're building trust, people like you, you're engaging with people, but that's not how you sell. That's not your sales tool, but it can lead you to leads. So then if you go from that place and you send people to fill this out, right? Great. Now you have a system every day in your business. You are letting people know this is a place you want to hear from them. So why might they fill it out? Well, you can say, I want to keep making the kind of content that serves you. I want to know more about you. Or I'm creating the next workshop. I want to know what you need, right? I'm working on a podcast. I want to know how I can serve you. What else has to happen? The things that you are creating have to be breadcrumbs that actually lead people to that, right? One of the things that Colleen and I are noticing is that my podcast is essentially like Barbara Walters. It's like Larry King. I'm interviewing people for the most part. By and large, I've become known as somebody who interviews very cool, deep, interesting people. But that doesn't necessarily close the gap and make you think, oh, Malcolm Gladwell, I love reading his books. Therefore, I want him to be my coach. It's like, wait, no, I don't. I think he's great. I like him. He's interesting. I read The Tipping Point. I thought it was cool. But if he were to then say, I write these books on sociology and things that I observe, come to me for coaching. You'd be like, it's not exact, right? Just because somebody thinks you're smart doesn't mean that they make the connection in their brain. So we've been realizing that we have these huge launch pulses because during the launch, I lead people through a process and I enroll people in content that shows them down the like sort of Hansel and Gretel breadcrumbs, like, here's what we start with. Here's what's next. Here's your thought process. Here's how you get proof of concept. Here's how you begin a business. And then it's like, oh, I'll show you how to do that. Oh, that makes sense. But day after day after day on the podcast, we don't necessarily see people reaching out, right, in the same way. People will say they want to spend time with me. I want one-on-one coaching, but then it's like, well, I have this course that does that. It's like, well, no, I just want to talk to you, right? Because they're not necessarily getting that. If you look at someone like Amy Porterfield, her podcast is, she's not interested in interviewing all of these interesting people. She's not having Chelsea Clinton on. She's not having Matthew McConaughey on. She's not having Deepak Chopra on. She's just going to talk about online marketing tips, online marketing. And then she goes, I have a class now on this. I have a full class. Like, great, I want that because I liked this content and I'm building my awareness, right? So we're all constantly doing that, right? We're all constantly doing that and refining that. So whatever content you're creating, you want to make sure that it leads people to, this is now going to make sense that you would come to me for the next paid thing, right? So, and then it's a matter of creating, right? Creating your very first thing, and you rinse and repeat it, and you become the person that people go to for that, right? You become the person that people go to. And we can talk more and more and more about this, but we have, right? We have. And the reason I started out with what prevents us from taking action is because, and I told you I was going to tell you about behind the scenes of my business. It's like I said when we first got on this call, for a rocket to be launched, right? For a baby to be made, for a fire to start. Do you know how much action, right? Until the momentum is built and now there's a fire, right? For a cannon to be launched, you know, there's so much pressure that builds up that boom, right? There it is. It's like what we do is we're not giving that amount of momentum every day, just showing up, energy, right? And over time, right? There's this release because it makes sense. And so I was saying during our launch call yesterday with our launch participants, I said, for us to look at people like anyone you admire, Lady Gaga or Serena Williams or Beyonce, and you're like, that person's damn lucky and you know it. It's like, that's an insult. That is not true, right? That person is there. It's like, you know, they're taking 400 free throws before breakfast and that momentum compounds. And it's that over and over and over again, right? And that's what Malcolm Gladwell does say in Outliers. He's like, the Beatles, when they began as the Beatles, they had already worked together for 8 years. They were crystallized. They played together with precision. There's a mastery to it. So many repetitions over and over and over. They get those reps in, right? And so on our way to building a hugely profitable business, it's not fair to look at someone and go, that person, they have this thing, right? It's this magical thing. It's like that person has put in the time, right? The reason why Colleen's even in this business is because she showed up in this business when this business was generating multi-millions of dollars, right? And when I hired my first employee, we were already over $1 million, right? Because I can't even bring somebody in unless I'm already in a place where my investment, my time, right? It's there. And so behind the scenes right now of our business, just so you can see how much momentum needs to be generated. I mean, we talked about this launch. This is every launch, okay? This just shows you every launch. We talked about this launch for weeks leading up to it. So before we even started the launch, we had 175, let's call it, pre-sales. We had pre-sold the class. But think about how big my audience is. Think about how big my audience is and how consistently I show up and engage, not just show up, but engage people. So 83,000 people on social media, almost 1 million downloads a month, right? And we're talking about that pre-sale. That's 175 sales out of all of that energy, all of that engagement. So do not beat yourself up and go, I only have 3. It's like, well, whoa, how much are you showing up? And is that actually something to beat yourself up about? Or is it really like, we just brought on a sales consultant to see if we can get an edge, right? When you're here, you want to see if you can stretch. It's not the first 20 sit-ups that's good. It's the 5 you do after. You stay for those extra 5, you get more out of those extra 5 than you do out of the first 20. So we're trying to bring on and find an edge. And so this woman comes into the business and she says, you need to do 100 DMs a day. And I said, okay, what does that show you? And she said, in my research, working with CEOs and their sales teams, 100 DMs a day, you'll close 2 sales. So you know what happens? We give that to our girls who aren't even trained, right? As really understanding the human behavior dynamics. And that's what sales really is. And they're just coming in with heart. They're closing 10 out of 100. She goes, that's unheard of. That's incredible. That is phenomenal, right? She's like, that's not standard. It's not normal. But she's like, you need that many conversations to be happening, right? Because also you want to be generating leads all the time. So if you DM to 100 people a day, right? Then if you only heard back from 19 of them, maybe 4 days later, you heard back from 12 of those other people, right? It just keeps this ongoing conversation. So, and that's at the level that we're at, right? I don't think I would tell you to do 100 DMs a day, but at the level we're at, we have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people asking for things week by week. Like, we do need to be at that place, and we really haven't been doing that. So we've been losing revenue because we haven't dedicated time to that, which is really fascinating and good and interesting. But my point is, so we had 175 pre-sales, and then we open up the cart. And we kind of, the more you practice, you get better at things. If you practice the cello, you get damn good at it. You practice speaking, you're a good speaker, right? You practice run, same thing. So I've done many launches over 6 years, right? Many of them, I can't even count, but let's say 50 launches. So last week is my best performance, right? And it's not a performance, it's real. It's me, I'm present. There's no script. It's like, it's great. How many do you think that we closed so far? We had over 1,500 people alive and awake, commenting. This is the most, we had not one negative comment. Not only not no one negative comment, every comment was, you should just read the comments. It was like, this is blowing my mind. This is incredible. I cannot believe what I'm learning. I'm telling everyone about this. I'm in tears. You're amazing. I mean, like, those are the comments. 1,500 people live, showed up the second day, showed up the third day, showed up the fourth day. Open the cart. How many people would you guess have bought so far? From that level of precision and love and energy and resonance. And we have all of it dialed in, right? At this point, there's a workbook. I used to not have that, right? Colleen makes these beautiful workbooks, right? And all of this stuff is like together, and we have like, it's just like, it's great. It's like solidified, right? So we have had, so Jen, you guessed 100. So that's not a high number. And still, it's a good guess. Amy said 500 so far. So we're at like, are we at 204, Colleen?
Yeah, I'm just pulling it up now to see if I can get the in the moment number. But we were this morning. That is correct.
Let's say 204. We were there 2 hours ago. Maybe now it's 210. It doesn't matter. Yeah. So let's say we're at 210. Okay. Do you guys hear what I'm saying? So instead of beating yourself up, go, holy shit. Right? Like, because my husband always says, my husband used to work at Fox Sports. And so he's really into basketball and he knows all the players. And we would go to all these basketball games. And he goes, do you understand the level of these guys in the draft? He goes, because the guy who played varsity basketball, who was the second, didn't get drafted. That's how good he was. And he's not drafted. Right? He goes, then these guys in the NBA, so many of these guys get drafted. They're at that level. They don't even get to play. They get benched the whole time. Then they get to play for like a year and now they're back and now they're selling cars. because they can't get a job and all they know is basketball. He goes, and do you understand how good you have to be to become Larry Bird and Steph Curry and Scottie Pippen? Like, it's insane, like how good you have to be, because the people who are that good that they got drafted into the NBA, they don't even stand a chance next to the guys that are that good, right? They say that, like, if you watch the Olympics and you see those runners, right? And the person who wins by like a quarter of a second, and the person who's like less than milliseconds later, let's say they're number 3, you don't even know their name. You only know the person who's like on the Wheaties box, right? But the person who came in third was milliseconds behind. And it's like, no, that's not even close, right? You're nobody. We've never heard of you. You're either Michael Phelps or you're nothing, right? Nothing. You don't even make it. No one even discusses your name and you're that good, right? What I'm saying is, like, instead of beating yourself up, you just start to understand the magnitude of energy. You understand what's required. And then you have respect. You have massive respect for people who make it to where they are. Taylor Swift says, for every one song that goes on the record, she wrote 100 that sucked, right? So she's not writing 10 songs and 10 songs go on the record. She's writing thousands of songs. She's writing a song every single day. And then 3 years later, she goes, what are the 10 best songs? Diane Warren says, I write a song every single day and most of them are shit, right? And then every 55 songs, like, Because You Love Me, that's a hit. Let's put that out there, right? David Foster, it's like, he's incredible. How many hits has he had? 20. How many should he have had? 2,000. No, he doesn't have 2,000 because most of them are shit, but they're not, because that's what it takes to get to where it is. You've seen the Campbell soup cans. Look at all the other Andy Warhol stuff. Michael Jordan misses most of the shots. He just gets more than most people, but he takes more shots than most people, but he misses most of them, obviously, right? So when we think about where we want to be and you're like, I want to make $1 million, I want to make $5 million, like, great. How much momentum? How much action do you have to take to get this result, right? You want to lose weight? How much action? You got to drink that water. You got to drink it every day, right? You got to get your fucking running shoes on, as opposed to being like, why doesn't it work from a day of water? Fuck this. It's like, that's not a champion's attitude. It just, I'm sitting here telling you, it doesn't make sense. We have almost 1 million downloads a month. Consistent. We have over 7,500 5-star reviews, right? We have an audience that's engaged. We have 204 sales. We don't have 2,000. It doesn't just work like that, right? And people are fucking bananas about this launch. We had 15,000 people join this launch and people are bonker town for it. We had the most amazing, raging audience, like, Cathy Eller, I don't even know who you are. I can't believe what woke up inside of me. You are amazing. Are they going to buy? No. Why not? Why not? Tell me in the chat. Why are they not going to buy? Anyone have an idea? That's right. They have fear. They're in resistance. You know what's trending? That's what's trending is their momentum around what's possible for them, right? I can come in and I can blow their mind and they're going to say, God, that felt so good. Wow. And then they're just going to move on. You know, it's like you go to the Grand Canyon and you go, holy shit. Wow. And then you go 2 days later, you're like, I don't know if there's a God. I don't think there's anything amazing about life. It takes nothing. Because the momentum is there, right? You have somebody come out of the blue and give you the most genuine compliment and say, do you know what you are? Do you know what you do? And you go, oh my God. And you have a moment. And 6 days later, you're like, I'm such a fuck up. I'm such a moron. Like, of course, because that's where you're trending, right? So the amount of people, I had a Zoom call with Tony Robbins a year and a half ago, he wanted me to be part of his launch. He was like bringing all these women in. And I think the only person he got to commit was Jenna Kutcher, but he asked me and 6 of my girlfriends. And he goes, do you know how many people we have to bring into our launch in order to close? He's like, we have to bring in 5 million people. So we're at 15,000, right? He's got to bring in 5 million people to get a few hundred to join. I'm like, holy shit. and he's got it dialed in. Like he knows human behavior. He knows linguistics. He knows NLP. He knows it better than anyone. Right. And people come to UPW. There's 12,000 people. They do the fire walk. They're like, yes. He's like, let me hear you say yes. Like, yes, yes, yes. 12,000 people. What happens? They get the response. People need to come back. They're off track again as they've got that momentum. Right. So when you look at where you've been, let's just take this last chunk of 3 months, 6 months, 90 days, 5 months, whatever you want to look at. And you're looking, I want you to look at your results. And then in order to look at your results, I want you to quickly look at the action. Massive action, this much result. And then you build on it and you build on it. Massive action, this much result. That's literally physics. That is the law of nature. Okay. You're going to plant and plant and plant. You're going to get this little, it's amazing what it takes. You need the right conditions of the air and you got to keep tending that fertilizer. My God, my daughter and I have tried. We have tried to grow so many things. I'm like, because you overwatered it, because you didn't water it, because there was no sunlight. You got to pay attention. You got to pay attention, right? You want to win that tennis match? You can't just practice 3 times before you show up at this match. It just won't work. You got to do rep after rep after rep after rep. And even then, you're halfway going to cut it. Right? But you're going to get better. You study people like Bobby Fischer. He was insane. He was actually a very sick person. But the amount of time that he dedicated to chess it was like growth. It was like so much. Like actually, if you watch The Last Dance and you look at Michael Jordan's life, there's no balance. There's no balance. It was all basketball. His relationships went down the drain. His everything went down the drain. Because that level of mastery, which I don't think any one of us is looking for. I'm not trying to be Michael Jordan level, but that level requires no balance because that much massive action to get to that place, right? So for him to get to that place, think about how many times 10x what he's doing in terms of what he's preparing, in terms of his action to get that many shots. It's almost impossible. It's almost like every single waking moment, he has to be focused. He has to be training. And you feel that. And you know what? It feels so fucking good to feel that. It feels like the best sex ever. You're like, yes, that makes sense. And you know why it feels so good? Because we are actually designed to be that level. We are actually designed, just like a redwood is designed to be that effing tall. We are designed to be at our peak. And so it's almost helpful to go, right, that is what is required. And then it feels so good when somebody's like, you got this, take the hill, do it again. And then you're like, but damn it, I gained all the weight back. And they're like, that's right. This is what's required. And it won't stop. And it won't stop because you owe it to yourself to find your capacity, because your capacity is bigger than what you keep telling yourself it is. And honestly, that's what Colleen was saying is like, the happiness actually isn't even over there. It's in finding that capacity. That's the fucking turn on, right? Getting into it every day. And so I want you to see like 15,000 people signed up for this launch. By the way, out of 1 million that could have signed up? No, look at that. Look at every level of it. We have almost 1 million downloads of a podcast that is consistently well loved. Then you get 15,000 of those people to sign up. Okay. Then from those 15,000 people, there are 200 people right now. And everyone knows about this offer. It's on every podcast episode. It's in our email list. We have a huge email list. It's in 200 people so far. And usually by Friday, we'll be at 500. We seem to have that as our ceiling. I'm not that surprised because look at our action. Not that different, right? So we'll probably wind up around 500. Now we did have 175 pre-sales and that was unique. That was different. And that's interesting also to look at. Like we had almost, the same amount of pre-sales as we've had, but tell me in the chat if that helps you guys to hear, to put things in context, because I think it's so fucking easy to delude ourselves. And when we delude ourselves and we lie to ourselves about what's reality, we beat ourselves up. It's like, is it time to cue the beating yourself up? Or is it time to cue, I didn't show up to that level? There's no way. If she's generating 200 sales from that much, right? That much dialed in. How could I expect to have gotten one sale? Am I showing up consistently? Is the promise clear? Is the content consistent and engaging? Because if it is at a level that's a fraction of what I'm doing, you could then go, okay, that's why I have 9 sales. That's why I had 12, right? But we have to respect the work. We have to respect the mastery. We live in a generation that is really killing people in the sense that it's very much like, you shouldn't have to do anything. You shouldn't be uncomfortable. You should just get a promotion. Why is it not working? Like they're saying that people are, and they're younger, I think, than us by and large. I think we're all around the same age, like, but millennials, I guess, or whatever that new generation is called. It's like, if they don't get a promotion in 6 months, they quit. You know, my grandfather, he was doing like hard labor. Like, he's like, I don't, you know, he wouldn't understand it. It's like, it doesn't make sense, you know, and he did. He built a huge business that got him and his kids and his brothers out of poverty. And they did all this great stuff, you know, but like they put the time in, and that's okay. It's like, we just forget what needs to happen, right? For that brownie to be baked, that oven has to be preheated, and then it's got to be hot, 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 sustain it. Now you got 30 minutes, you get a tiny little 8x10 sheet of brownies, right? But you got to sustain that much in order for something to be made. And that's just the law of physics. Colleen, is there anything you want to say? And then we'll start to celebrate some people, and then we can talk about where to go from here.
Yeah, just a couple of questions that people are popping in. So Jen was asking about the 24-hour replay, and was this feeling better for us? So normally we always left the videos up basically through the whole challenge, but we tried something where this time we were saying you have 24 hours to watch it, and then it gets pulled to try and motivate people to engage. And I do think in terms of the viewership, we had more people when you could see the playbacks on how many people were viewing it. It did lead to greater people watching. It also let us then introduce another way of engaging people on the weekend, where we're like, hey, if you did miss the replays or one of the days, we're going to allow you access to a page, but we connect them into the DM conversations in order to get access to that. So it allowed us to engage them on another level instead of just like randomly sending that link out. So in terms of like sales conversions, I mean, that's sort of a different question, but I would say in terms of the capacity to engage with the leads and increase viewership of the content, yes.
Yeah. And the balance, I think Amy, I was just scroll up. Yeah, Amy was saying it gets confusing with the alignment focus, and it's still about the energy and putting in the work. And right. I mean, if you don't have a light bulb, the light can't come through. You need that physical thing to harness the light. We live in a physical and a spiritual reality, right? Most of what's happening is that there's electricity flowing through the light bulb, right? The light bulb is not really the part that's doing the heavy lifting, because if the lamp is not plugged in, the light bulb is worth nothing. It's not even worth the 99 cents. It's the electricity. You need to get electricity plugged in, you know, wired in your house. So if Michael Jordan, if he was in a bad mental state, right, he could do all those reps, but his energy, if he's down on himself, if he's not picturing this outcome, if he's not meditating, which he was doing, we know he was doing that equal parts to what he was doing in his practice. If he wasn't doing that, he wouldn't get the edge, right? Because you can't mess with energy. If you watch them, also the Magic Johnson, they just did 2 documentaries on him. It was like he was a show. It was his energy. People would applaud him. Like it was like he changed basketball because of his energy, right? It's not sending 15 emails. It's what the hell's in the email, right? If there's nothing resonant in the email and you're just kind of salesy, it's like you would never close. And that's most of what you see. People who are not in alignment, the resonance is not there. They're focused only on action. They're just looking at the light bulb. There's no actual light, and it doesn't work. And most things are like that because people don't even know how to begin the language around finding, right, what's real, right? There's not every person who's sitting in a room sewing things together is Jim Henson, because Kermit is not a sock. It's an energy, it's a spirit, it's creativity, right? It's his alignment, it's his being in state, it's his vision, right? I was saying during the launch that Walt Disney sold air. He sold conviction, right? He had a vision. So, but he had to tell that to many, 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 many people, right? But it's what's in it that actually makes it last, that makes it work. Otherwise it falls apart and it doesn't work. Also, what's part of the alignment is the unattachment, right? If you're doing all of these things and you are attached, right, it doesn't work because the energy isn't allowing energy, it's forcing energy. So when I'm part of the reason I still very much always enjoy all of these things is because given everything I just said, I enjoy the whole process, right? Like right now, Colleen and I were like, we're scratching our head. We're like, we had more people than ever show up live. We thought then we would have more people just ravenously like buy this class. And we're like, but this is an opportunity. What could we do different? How can we position it better? What could be the offering? Should we have a suite of offers? It's just like a fun puzzle, but my point is I'm not attached. I'm not worried about it. And I don't think anybody feels, oh, Cathy personally feels it. If we don't buy, she's upset. It's like, no, I say to them like 20 times during the launch, I am probably not your teacher because I'm not everybody's teacher. So really look inside and find out who your teacher is and pick the right person. I say it over and over and over again because I mean it. Because not everybody wants to learn from me and Colleen. Some people want to learn from many other people for many other reasons, and that's important.
Yeah. And I think, Amy, like when you asked that, my mind just went to two places. And one was what Cathy just said, non-attachment and having just an awareness of like where you're at in that process. And number two is, does this fucking light me up, right? In terms of what you're moving to offer. If you have those two pieces, I'm going to have awareness about when I am being attached and when I notice stepping into that and like, ooh, catch myself. And B, I'm so fucking enthusiastic about what I'm offering. That is alignment. End of story. That does not mean there will not be the discomfort of like, ooh, I feel like I'm going to throw up when I do this. Oh my God, that was like 10 no's or 90 people never responded to my DMs, whatever it is. All that process has nothing to do with whether you were aligned or not aligned. That's just part of what comes up as we are moving from, I have something I'm enthusiastic about and I'm going to stop perseverating on what the byproduct is of everything in this moment. I'm going to be non-attached and focus here and move with discomfort and get called up and grow and stretch. And that's alignment. So I think we get caught thinking alignment just to say, feel so good all the time. And it's like, no, it's not supposed to. It's not supposed to, or you're doing something actually wrong because we can't grow unless we're feeling uncomfortable.
That's right.
Aren't doing something that makes you feel like throwing up almost every day in your business. Yeah. That is why you do not have revenue.
Yeah. And also, I think there's two different conversations. One conversation is I have a goal, which is to make money, right? And that, for me, I mean, that's a real turn on. I love that conversation. The other conversation I equally love is I have a goal, which is I want to feel fucking lit right now. It's like, oh, that's available. Mm-hmm. That has nothing to do with a pile of money. Yes. In fact, once you make that pile of money, in order for you to get this again, it won't sustain itself because you have a pile of money, because what you really want in order to feel this good is to feel the feeling. And just because you have a pile of stuff doesn't mean you will sustain that feeling, because the feeling doesn't come from the pile of stuff. It comes from, where is your focus? How the fuck do you feel right now? It has to do with what are you thinking about? You could have a pile of stuff and be thinking about lots of things. So you're going to have to keep working that muscle. And that's what we've talked about during this period of time that we've been together. We've talked about how do we make money? And we've talked about how do we feel good? And they are not actually linked. The outcome is not linked. That's the alignment. There is no one who's going to tell you that when you get the pile of stuff, that's where your happiness is, because that's the lie. Your happiness is in your state of mind. Your happiness is in, you want to take a thought and turn it into a thing. You want to be in creative mode. You love the idea of feeling so good and generating energy from just yourself alone and being able to find levels of peace and gratitude as you just walk through your fucking day. That's on you, right? Because it's where your focus is in the moment. What are you thinking about? What are you feeling? What chemicals are you giving yourself today? What pharmaceutical are you providing for yourself? Most of the time, most people are just providing themselves a lot of cortisol. So they're stressed the hell out. And then they say, my happiness is not up to me. I cannot get happy. My happiness is on the other side of this and it's impossible. And therefore I have all the more reason to give myself more cortisol. And I am an addict. I am addicted to it. It is awesome. It's what I've got and I'm pissed about it, but I just can't keep getting enough of it. And my happiness keeps getting further and further away from me. That is a separate conversation. Then I have a goal and I want to crush this business and make money. But they're both awesome things to be thinking about and to be diving into. And those are the two conversations that we've been having. And it turns out that the more your focus is in a place where you know how to turn yourself on and you know how to feel gratitude and you know how to feel a peace of mind, turns out that does affect your business. Turns out that does affect your creativity. Turns out that gives you some downloads. Turns out that gives you the freedom. That good feeling just keeps coming. That good feeling just keeps coming. Next thing you know, you're like, why wouldn't I give this little bit of action a try today? Why wouldn't I put some more sauce on this? Why wouldn't I change my focus? Why not? Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? You're just feeling so fucking good. When you're feeling good, everything's a pleasure. When you're feeling good, you can go to the DMV. When you're feeling good, you can do anything. But when we're not feeling good and our feeling good is on the outcome, we got big problems in our business, right? And that's what we've been talking about. So these are both muscles, right? Learning to take the right action consistently is a muscle, and learning how to turn ourselves on, well, that's the life's journey. And we're all looking at that all the time.